You're not living your dream life because you're weak. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, which means we all have an opportunity to make our lives better. But yet, there are only a few people that are actually living the life of their dreams. Why do you think that is? If you're like most people, you would say, oh, it's because they got lucky, or they come from money, or they were born gifted. And if you said any of these things, then you've already proven my point. You're weak. You're mentally weak, and you don't even know it. Because here's the thing, you don't actually know that any of this is true for these people. You're just assuming. And even if it was true for them, what does that have to do with you? Who's to say you can't achieve the same results with a little effort and strategy? It is possible, and you can do it by becoming mentally strong. In this video, I will teach you how to develop your mental strength to unlock your highest potential. And if you're new here, hi girl, my name is Marsella, and on this channel, I teach women how to become their highest selves. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to subscribe. It's time for you to think on a higher level. Life is not without its challenges, but know that you have the ability to think your way through them. So if you're ready to learn how to do so, be sure to stick around for all of the gems that will be dropped in this video. Let's dive right into it. The first thing that you need to do is you need to shift your perspective. I'm going to try to explain this to the best of my ability without getting all woo-woo, even though I'm into all of the woo-woo stuff. Reality is more of a personal concept than it is a universal concept. Meaning, what's real to me may not necessarily be real to you. The way we think plays a huge role in what we're experiencing and also how we feel about those experiences. For example, I personally love rainy days, especially when I'm in the house. I think it's just a really good time for me to just clean up around the home and really ground myself and connect. I also usually just put on some Sade or any type of R&B and literally just vibe, right? But I do know that there are a lot of people that don't like rainy days. And I can understand why. It's usually gloomy and gray. Things usually move a lot slower, and I do have to admit, getting wet is not always the best feeling. So the way I think about rainy days and the way someone else thinks about rainy days is ultimately going to shape our perspective when it rains. So on a particular day, I wake up, it's raining, and I go, ooh, you know what? Great day for me to do my laundry, for me to clean up. I get my stretches in, etc., etc. I literally pull out my duster and I'm just dusting all around the house and I'm in my zone, right? I'm all smiles and I'm honestly just grateful for this time that I get to really recharge and reset. Someone else wakes up and it's raining and they're like, oh my goodness, it is the worst day. They don't want to get ready. They have to put on these heavy rain boots, etc., etc. To become mentally strong, you want to develop a positive perspective, or at least be able to see the positive in any situation. When you're able to extract the positive from every situation, then you're able to see everything as working in your favor. This is so important because it takes you out of that victim mindset, that victim mode that most people live their entire lives in. When I say that these people are weak, I'm not saying that their morals and values are necessarily weak, which they may be. What I'm specifically talking about is their perspective. They see things from a victim mindset, from a victim's eyes. And if you develop this mindset of always seeing the negative and always feeling like the victim and always thinking that everything is working against you, then how could you ever become an empowered, mentally strong person? You can't. And that's exactly why we're starting here. A weak perspective makes you weak, and a strong perspective makes you strong. When you learn to see everything as working in your favor, you will learn to shift your reality. The next thing you need to do is you need to separate yourself from your challenges. This is one of the toughest things for people to do because it goes against everything that society values. Modern society, especially a capitalistic society, blends the achievements of a person to who they actually are. Essentially, you are your achievements. Nothing more, nothing less. And that in and of itself is problematic. But then you add the inverse. You are your failures. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's when things can really go downhill. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's exactly what happens. But here's the part that's really scary. Everyone experiences failure. Failure is not an unavoidable thing. It's a part of life, and especially a part of growth. The bigger the goal, the more you'll have to fail along the way because there are things that you are going to need to learn. So if we live in a society that attaches our accomplishments and our failures to who we actually are, and we will inevitably fail if we're on our way to becoming our highest versions, then how can we get out of this? You have to develop a positive identity about yourself that does not change. Meaning, when you're winning, you think that you're the bomb.com. And when you're losing, you still think that you're the bomb.com. This is how you're able to float above it all and how you're able to keep your own emotions and society's expectations at bay. And when you're able to experience a failure or a setback and still be able to look in the mirror and know that you're that girl, that's when you develop that mental strength that no one can touch. So I say this to say, do not take your setbacks personally. Yes, that goes against the grain of society, but you need to go against the grain of society. No shade, but there aren't that many mentally strong people out here, and it's because no one is there to teach them. So you let your challenges teach you. Understand that your challenges are there to teach you. They're showing you something about yourself that you may not have been able to see. Think of them as level up courses given to you by life. If you pass the test, you get to go to the next level. And isn't that why we're all here? The mentally stronger you get, the more levels you can get to. Not that it gets easier, but you get better. To become mentally strong, you need to face problems head on. I love the story of David and Goliath because I think it beautifully illustrates the power of mental strength. Goliath was a giant. When's the last time you've seen a giant walking around? Imagine seeing a giant. That's already scary. And then imagine this giant not liking you. Terrifying. But did that stop David? Oh no. David stepped up to the plate. David faced his problem head on. Slingshot in hand, he walked right up on that giant, fired, and the rest is history. We can learn so many things from David, but I think the biggest takeaway is this. David knew that he was bigger than his problem. While everyone else was looking at the giant, David was looking at himself. David knew that he was bigger than the giant. It didn't matter how tall or how big or how much weight this giant had in front of him. David knew that he was bigger because he knew his own potential. He knew who he was on the inside. He was mentally strong. I see so many people behind in life and struggling, all because they refuse to face their problems head on. Instead of just standing up to Goliath, they run in circles. They run from Goliath. They run anywhere else but towards it. And while they may think it brings relief, they know it's painful. It's painful to not be able to stand up to the one thing that's in your way. It's painful to have to go from side to side instead of moving forward in life, all because you're afraid. It's painful to live life without mental strength. And that's why you need to choose to fight and not flight. Stand up to the problems and challenges that show up in your life. Just because something is difficult does not make it impossible. Just because something may look bigger than you on the outside doesn't mean that it actually is on the inside. And on the inside is the only place that counts. Better to fight and lose than not fight and lose out, because all of your glory is going to be in that fight. Everything you need to know to get to the next level is going to be in that fight. All of the wisdom that you need to live up to your highest potential is going to be in that fight. So you need to show up for your fights, and you need to have courage, and you need to believe that you will win. And I don't mean physically fighting. I do not promote that, but I think you guys understand what I'm getting at here. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay? Okay. And once you make it to the other side of that fight, put yourself in a better position. Remember, the challenges show up to teach you something about yourself. The challenges show up to make you mentally stronger. So now that you have this wisdom, you can decide to make things easier for yourself moving forward. That would be the wisest thing to do. It makes no sense to face the same challenge twice. If you want to become mentally strong, you need to make decisions. Oh, decisions, how we all love them. Well, I personally do love them now, but only because I've gotten better at making them. Making a decision allows me to really flex my mental strength. Mental strength is like a muscle. It has to be used or you'll lose it. So I embrace the opportunity to make decisions because I know it makes me mentally stronger and ultimately makes me a better thinker. When it comes to becoming our highest selves, we have to decide to do so. You have to decide what your life is going to be. You cannot leave it to chance. So many people avoid making decisions because decisions come with responsibility. If you make a decision, you have to own it, and you have to own the consequences. And for a person that lacks mental strength, that is just too much of an ask. So instead, a mentally weak person will just avoid decision-making altogether. And unfortunately, that is a recipe for disaster. When you decide what your life is going to be, you control your destiny. You're able to truly get the most out of life. And unlike most of the people in the world, you're able to think for yourself. Thinking for yourself gives you the opportunity to become your own person, to have your own identity, and to be an individual. Instead of just going along with what everyone else thinks and agreeing with them, you now have a mind of your own. And it is the most freeing and liberating thing. But it does take a great deal of mental strength. The masses are always trying to get you to think like them and do things the way that they do them. But you have the right to be you. And becoming mentally strong helps you do that. So learn to make decisions and learn to live with the results. Learn to take complete ownership for how you think, how you feel, who you are, and be unapologetic about it. That is how you become mentally strong. And know that this is a process, so you need to be patient. Take the time to develop your mental strength. Make it a priority. Pay attention to the way you deal with challenges. Take notes of it. Make journal entries. What were the things that you did well? What were the things that you didn't do so well? How can we do better next time? When you're aware of how these challenges affect you mentally, then you put yourself in a better position to improve next time. So be sure to keep tabs on yourself. Also, stand by all of the decisions that you make. Again, we're learning how to take accountability and responsibility, which are building blocks for mental strength. The more you do it, the better you'll become, so stay disciplined. Be intentional about becoming mentally strong, and soon, not even Goliath can stand in your way. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Mental strength is something I'm deeply passionate about because I know how important it is for life. How much you get out of life is a direct correlation of how strong you are mentally. So it is my sincere hope that you use this information to improve your mental strength. And if you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Be sure to subscribe. We'd love to have you become a part of the family. Earlier, I mentioned that you need to have a positive identity for mental strength. But if you self-sabotage, you're destroying your identity. So watch this video where I teach you how to stop self-sabotaging. Okay, my loves, until next time, take good care of yourselves. Bye.